campaign in the second part. Well, hello everyone. This is Al Fadi, and I'd like to welcome you back to another live stream with our dear brother Jay Smith. Earlier, we had another one where we invited Robert Spencer, and we talked about the search for Muhammad, or the quest for the real Muhammad, or did Muhammad exist? In today's live stream, we're going to end up doing the same thing. We are going to do two parts, part one and part two, because this is also going to be part of my radio podcast, Let Us Reason. And we are going to cover similar issues related to the historicity of Muhammad and his person, his origin, and so on and so forth. But before we do that, I'm going to start now our podcast, Let Us Reason. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our podcast, Let Us Reason. We are doing a special podcast today. Because I am in our studios, I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm doing a live stream on both YouTube at Sira International, that's our channel, and also my own personal Facebook page, alfadi.sira. So if you're listening to this on radio, you can always go back to this particular live stream, December 3rd, 2020, December 3rd, 2020, and you'll be able to watch the same thing, and it's going to be two parts, part one and part two. If you are, of course, listening to us on radio at Let Us Reason, then part two will be next week for you. But if you are here with us in studio right now or on the live stream, you will be watching both parts back to back. So after 24 to 25 minutes, I will pause, end part one, take about a minute intermission, and then we'll come back again and do part two. Please do not leave. And also, please, at the conclusion of the second part, stay with us for a few more minutes because we want to interact with you as well. Keep in mind, you can always send us comments and questions. We will look at those. And as time permits during the live stream, we will be able to interact with you. With me here again in studio is our dear brother, Jay Smith. Jay, why don't you unpack for people what we have covered so far, and by way of the videos that we've recorded?
Today, well, we've done quite a bit. When you come here, well, yeah, Al-Fadi, you have put me to work. And that's been terrific. As you can see, all the books around me, we've been really unpacking where Muhammad is. Where is Waldo? I said Wally before. I really should have said where is Waldo, because Waldo is a character in the comic books you're looking for. Wally doesn't even exist. He's nothing more than another cartoon character that's up in space. But been asking this difficulty. This is the problem that Muslims have. They talk about Muhammad. They always refer to him. They worship Allah, but his prophet, who's always the one that is the paradigm, the model for all of mankind, everywhere, at any place, at any time. They always have to go back to him. Yet everything they're talking about, everything they refer to, everything he said or did, is written so late, 200 to 300 years late, with Ibn Hisham in 833, with Al-Bukhari in 870. Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, all the others who come after 870, and then, of course, Al-Tabari in 923. So that's 9th and 10th century. And we've been saying this, and I've been saying this since, 1995, when I did my debate with Dr. Jamal Badawi. I asked, at that time, I gave 10 historical challenges that I got from Dr. Patricia Corona. I'd been in her office earlier that week, and she went through these 10 challenges, and she said, Jay, why don't you use these? Say this, don't say this. Here's a better way to say it than what I had. I turned to her and I said, why don't you do this debate? Why don't you go and take on Jamal Badawi? And she kind of laughed at me. She says, no. As a scholar, I cannot do this debate because I have a chair to protect. I have an institution that supports me. I dare not ask the questions that you have the freedom to do. And that's exactly why we've been doing this. You and I have a freedom that the academics don't have. They cannot ask these kind of questions. They can do the research. They can put it out there. They cannot come to conclusions. When I was studying under Dr. Gerald Haunting in 1994, 1995, I was there at the School of Oriental and African Studies, and he would go through the emergence of Islam, very much the same material that we're looking at now. Nothing, well, similar to material, not the same material, because we have so much more now than they had back 25 years ago. And he would just put out these references. Here's the Dome of the Rock. Notice it doesn't have a Qibla. And I'm raising my hand and say, hold on a minute, that's hugely significant. He says, maybe so, but let's go on to the next step. I said, no, help me, walk through this. Why is it there's no Qibla in such a large structure there in the 7th century, in late 7th century? He didn't want to come to conclusions. He was an academic. I would take this material down to Speaker's Corner and get up on the ladder. Well, at that time, I wasn't on the ladder until 1995, but I would introduce it to the Muslims on the ground. When Haunting heard that I was doing this, he took me in his office and said, don't you ever do this. This is not for public consumption. I said, if you're going to teach it, we can use it. Right. He says, don't ever associate my name with this. I said, Ray, you're the one that's teaching us it. And then the penny dropped when he said, I dare not let Muslims know about this. This must not get into the public sphere because I could lose my chair. And he was fearful for his life. And that's why we're doing what we're doing now. This is something that academics don't want to talk about. This is something academics dare not talk about. They are scared of losing their chairs. Even someone as important as Patricia Corona, who reads and writes 15 languages, who did all this German material, who was able to go back to the original sources, she could not debate this. She dared not debate this. Gerald Haunting, who was teaching it in his class, as long as the students were there and he knew who they were, that was fine. Now stop and ask me, tell me something here. Is there any other field of research where what you find will ruin your career, or what you will find may lose your life? Can you see the problem we're dealing with?
Exactly.
And that's why no one has dared to go public with it. We're going public with it, but thank God for Robert Spencer for doing that for us. He went public with this type of material in 2012.
That's correct.
In this book right here. This is the book that we introduced earlier today. And this is the book that came out in 2012, Did Muhammad Exist? Huge controversy, enormous controversy when he came out with this. And people would not put him on shows. They shut him down. He wanted to come over to Britain to support Tommy Robinson. He was not allowed a visa. They wouldn't even allow him into Heathrow Airport. He is so controversial. And the reason why he is so controversial is he's asking a question that everybody should ask. If we'd asked the same question about Jesus Christ, did Jesus exist, which has been asked,
Right.
Would we shut them down?
Exactly.
Would we threaten them with death? Would we not allow them to have visas to come into our country? So you can see this is particularly controversial, and it is confrontational. We're asking the same question that has already been asked of Jesus Christ. Did Jesus exist? Well, that has been supported. That has been we have reference after reference. We have scholar after scholar who's come up to support that we know who Jesus is. We know what he said. We know what he did. We know where he lived, and we can do it from material that is from the same time period that he existed, and also by eyewitness accounts, and also, as we said in the earlier broadcast, from those who got it from the eyewitnesses, and also those who were hostile, even hostile accounts. That is not controversial to ask that question. Why is it that this is so controversial, Al-Fadi? And so that's why we're introducing this on YouTube, because YouTube is one of the only places where you can introduce this, at least up till now. I used to introduce this at Speaker's Corner back in the 1990s. I remember getting beat up for this. I remember having my glasses broken for this. It became dangerous for it to do that. When Hatun came onto my team, and Hatun then got on the ladder with me, we started introducing some of the Kirat. This stuff, these things here, the Kirat we introduced in 2016. We just held up her 26 that she had. She has been flailed. She has been harassed. You can see what's happening in the last few weeks. When this whole incident that happened on June 8th, when we introduced this material, when we confronted not we, it was Mohammed Hijab, who had been in the crowd there in 2016 when we introduced it at that time. He was in the crowd and came with the same question that we imposed there in 2016 to Yasser Qadi. That was just 5 months ago. And see what has happened to Hatun since that time. Muslims do not like you to ask these questions. You do not ask questions about the Quran. You do not ask questions about Muhammad. The Book of the Man, the Book of the Man. Those are the two things you do not talk about. Right. And yet we have been dared to do that. I remember in 2006 and 2007, there before the House of Parliament in Britain, there was this incitement to religious hatred law that the Muslims were introducing, saying that nobody can question the Prophet Muhammad, nobody can question the Quran. Those two things. In a Western country, they were arguing this in the House of Parliament. That went to the House of Lord. It came back to the House of Parliament 3 times. It went back and forth between the House of Parliament and the House of Lord. It finally came down to a vote, because by the 3rd time you have to come down to a vote. It was voted there in the House of Parliament, and it lost by 1 vote. By 1 vote. Whose vote was that? That was Tony Blair's vote, who was the Prime Minister at that time. When he saw what was happening, he stepped outside the hall so his vote would not count, knowing that they dare not let that go through, because if that had gone through, I would have been shipped out of the United Kingdom. I would have never been able to go back, because I dare to question both the Book and the Man. Those two things that would have been illegal. I would have either been put into prison for 7 years, or I would have been evicted from the country. Thank God that did not go through. But can you see what we're up against? This is what we're up against, and that's why we're asking this today, and that's why we're going to continue to ask this. You've got to confront the Book and the Man. You've got to confront the Quran, and you've got to confront Muhammad. In 2020 now, those two are being confronted in a huge way. And you can see what has happened on June 8th when Yasser Qadi could not answer the question about these Qiraat, these simple Qiraat. And then we had the debate. Now I had the debate just about 2 weeks ago with David Wood, where this question about Muhammad came up, and we finally decided to resurrect the same debate that he had 8 years ago with Robert Spencer on the same subject. We then reprised just 2 weeks ago, and again, over and over again, I kept on turning towards David Wood, and I said, "Where is this evidence you're looking at? Where is this evidence for this man named Muhammad?" He could not come up. After 2 hours, he could not give me one piece of evidence for Muhammad in the 7th century. In the 9th and 10th century, yes, but not in the 7th century. So that's why we're putting this together now. And we're trying to unpack it a little bit more than what I was given in the debate. The debate, I was only given 20 minutes to do that. You cannot do it in 20 minutes. As you can see, that's just one of these episodes that we've done today.
Right.
Is 20
right.
minutes.
Absolutely.
And so what we're doing is we're asking the question that has been asked of Jesus Christ. There in the 1800s, you have Wellhausen asking this question and been asked of our Bible. There in the 1900s, by 1905, this idea of historical criticism, biblical criticism, redacted criticism, source criticism, literary criticism, textual criticism, all these criticisms that were applied to the Bible, it decimated the church in Europe by 1905, and the church has never recovered in Europe. We, therefore, the Christians, therefore decided, and we, in some ways, we were caught staring in the floodlights. We were looking at the car lights coming at us, and we were not prepared for these kind of questions. So we decided to do our homework, and we started scratching around, and we found the Nuzi tablets, the Mari tablets, the Amarna tablets, the Ebla tablets to support now the historicity for the Old Testament, for people like Abraham, and also for Moses. for as far as for Jesus, we had to go find and see out where the material was to support him. And that's why I said, as I said earlier, we looked at the historians from that time period. People like Josephus, people like Tacitus, people like Thallus and Phlegon. These are the historians that were writing about this man, Jesus Christ. So we now pretty much can know who Jesus was, what he said, where he went, what he did. All of this now we pretty much have at our fingertips. But we didn't back in 1905. Now that we have gone through this as Christians, we understand redacted criticism, source criticism probably better than anybody else. This really is our job, to take those same criticisms that were applied to Jesus Christ, those same criticisms that were applied to the Bible, and now put it on their book and their man. Right. We've passed all the tests with Jesus and our Bible, our book and our man.
That's right.
Now we're doing the same thing to Muhammad. Today, what we have been doing, these episodes, which are all going to go up now, they're all going to go up on your site and my site later on. All of these, we're asking this germinal question: what about the man? What about the religion? What about the emergence of Islam? What actually did happen? If we can't find anything to support this man Muhammad, if we can't find anything to support this place called Mecca, if we can't find anything to support these people called Muslims or this religion called Islam, if we can't find anything to support the book called the Quran in the 7th century, then what can we find and what are we looking at? And that's why we're looking at the coins. We looked at the rock inscriptions. We did a whole three segments on looking at Shadi Nasr and his material that's coming out on the 5 canonizations of the Quran. And then we looked and saw where these Qurans were coming from, these Qira'ats. Why is it that they're all from the north? Almost all of them out of the 30, 22 of them are from the north. 12 of them are from one city alone, Kufa. Why is Kufa? What's going on in Kufa? What's happening there in Iraq? And that's why we're now unpacking and showing, if you look and see what's going on, almost everything we know about Islam, about who Muhammad is, where Islam came, where Mecca existed, the earliest Mecca, that is all in the north. It is all too far north and it's too far distant. And it's all beginning to appear in the Abbasid period after 749. This is the narrative that they wanted to get out. This is the man that they wanted to push forward. This is the book that they wanted to give to the world. But it is not an Umayyad. Even the Quran, the Islam that we have today is not Umayyad. It is Abbasid. It comes after 749. And that's why you need to look at these episodes, because we're going to show you the sequence. We're going to show you how it progressed. We're going to show you the evolution. And we're also going to show you that we can find this with both the book and the man and the place and the event, even the God. We're going to show you all of this comes to fruition, not at the time of Abu Bakr, not at the time of Umar or Uthman or Ali. None. We can't even find their names.
Right.
Not at the time of even Abdul Malik, who is the one that introduces the name Muhammad, though it's not the man that we're looking for, and not even at the time of those who come after him, like Al-Walid, where the Quran start to appear. The Islam that we have today is really an Abbasid invention. It's an Abbasid creation. So that's what we're going to do with these episodes. That's why it's important that we do this, so that people then can discuss it, they can debate it, and not get these death threats and be thrown out of institutions, because of the fact that they're asking the question that anybody should be able to ask.
And it's an unfortunate thing, Jay, because many of these amazing researchers, PhDs in the academic field have access to the data that you are sharing. Yet sadly, either it's published in obscure ways and only certain people can have access to it. You and I are fortunate to be able to do so. Or it's just kept to themselves because of what you mentioned: fear of losing their chair, fear of losing a job, fear of retaliation, fear of threats. I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, certainly the threats are real. But also I blame governments where these academics reside for not standing up for freedom of information, freedom of dissemination, I should say, of this information, and protecting people who are doing just honest research, not picking on anybody. They're just throwing it out there. Now, an interesting thing you mentioned, Jay, we're finding, you and I have done this enough since last year at least, where there is a theme. I look for themes usually. There is a theme, and the theme points to north. Everything coming from north. North, the first Qira'at, Qira'at Ibn Amir in Damascus. North, the Qibla and Petra. North, Bukhari, for instance. North, you find the Abbasid dynasty and the writings of the biography of Muhammad and so on. So everything is coming from north. And even inscriptions that dealing with Uthman and others, you don't find them except later. So there is geographical problems. You have dating problem as well. So you have the Quran, technically speaking, did not become a fixed canon or the 7 readings and the 10 until later in time. We're talking a couple of hundred years here. The Hadith collection, a couple of hundred years. The biography of Muhammad, a couple of hundred years. I hope everybody's starting to see this, but my hope is that the Muslims are paying attention to this. Why in the world don't we find anything around Mecca, Medina, and around 7th century? You and I have asked this question many times. Show us a single Quran, complete Quran, that dates back to 7th century. The answer is zero.
Remember Gibson? Dan Gibson was asking this in 1979. He noticed as he was going to these different mosques. He was looking at Nabatean, Petra, and those places because he was doing it for writing a book on tourism there. And as he went to all these different mosques, he kept on coming across the Qibla walls. Many of them were in ruin, but you could always see where the Qibla wall is because it's the longest wall. And he noticed that they were all facing in the wrong direction. Well, Creswell and Fehravadi noticed this in 1905, and they wrote about it. And they thought that these two mosques in Wasit and Kufa, which are there in Iraq, and the one in Fustat, which is there in Egypt, the ones in Iraq and Kufa were facing straight west. The one in Fustat is facing straight east. And they said, well, this looks like Jerusalem. Well, they didn't have GPS, they didn't have accelerator, they didn't have the satellite GPS systems that we have today, and so they thought that they had the right direction. They were also referring back to Jacob of Edessa, who writes in 705 that these Maghreb, they notice doesn't use the word Muslim, these Maghreb are facing the same place that we face, towards Jerusalem. He thought it was Jerusalem in 705. With Gibson, when he started using much more accurate GPS or these Aster satellites, which can get you within a few yards of efficiency, he noticed that every one of these mosques, and these mosques are found as far away as Guangzhou in China, as Sherman in Kerala in India. He was looking down in the Hadramaut area, he's looking up in Syria, he's looking up north, east, south, northwest. In every case, every one of these mosques are not facing Mecca at all. Right. And they're not facing Jerusalem either. That is incorrect. Once he looked and saw and got the accurate the directions for every one of these mosques, he saw that every mosque from the time of 630 all the way up to 706. 706 is the 8th century. Every one of them is facing Petra, Jordan, 100 miles away from Jerusalem. Close enough so if you're hundreds of miles away, it looks like it could be Jerusalem until you use GPS coordination, until you use the Aster satellites. Now, what was fascinating, they still were not facing Mecca, because then another group of Qibla start to be introduced called the Between Qibla, and that's what the word Wasit means, in between. It's not till 727 that you get the first mosque facing Mecca. 727. According to the traditions, according to Surah 2 in the Quran, this Qibla was changed from Jerusalem down to Mecca around 624. 624, now we're looking at 722. We have no mosque for 100 years that's facing Mecca at all. Can you then understand why we started saying that this is significant? Because this is supporting what we've seen with not just the manuscript evidence, not just with the coins, not just with the rocks. We're finding that all this seems to suggest it's all further north. Because remember, Petra is 600 miles further north. So now you have the Qiblas, you also have the inscriptions on the rocks, you have the coins, you have all this artifact after artifact that is coming forward saying that everything we know about the Islam that the 9th and 10th century is talking about did not take place that far south and did not take place that early. It all happened in the north. Then it was redacted back later on to this place in the south. Why was it finally redacted back to Mecca and Medina? That's what we're now looking at. And this is exciting because we now know the reason why they had to choose Mecca and Medina, and why all these traditions writing in the 9th and 10th century, where now the headquarters was Mecca and Medina, in the 9th and 10th century, they didn't look at their history when they were writing their material. Yeah. Ibn Hisham, Waqidi, and all of them did not look at their history.
Okay, folks in the control room, I want you to lower down the comments. I want to point Sabri Sackett, whom I'm paying attention to his comments. He's acting like Muslims don't care about the changes of Qibla. They know why the Qiblas were not facing Mecca.
Okay, what's the reason?
This is the first time I have ever heard that Qibla was never facing Mecca. In fact, you are taught as a Muslim that Muhammad and his companions faced Jerusalem, and then the verse came down in 622, and now he is facing towards Mecca, and he did not liberate Mecca until almost 630 AD. I have no idea where these Muslims get these ideas from.
Okay, well, al-Bahari says,
Yeah.
and of course we do know that the Quran in Surah 2, Ayah 148, 149, 150 do talk about the change of the Qibla.
That's right.
To the, what does it say? Masjid al-Haram. To
Right.
the, what does Masjid al-Haram mean in Arabic?
Well, I mean, Masjid al-Haram, meaning al-Haram, Masjid
Forbidden.
al-Haram, technically speaking, that's the title that is used right now for
But what does it
the
mean?
Grand Mosque.
What does
Well,
it mean? Unpack it.
It's just basically a forbidding area for prayer.
For prayer, for where you put your head down.
That's right.
For bowing down. So it's the forbidden place of prayer. So there's no Mecca there, right? That doesn't say
You
Mecca.
can't find this description next to Mecca in the Quran.
So
or
where is
next to the Kaaba.
What has Gibson found? Where has he found the Masjid al-Haram? He's found it in Petra.
In Petra, yeah.
This is there. And interestingly, if you look at the Kaaba that's in Petra, it fits the tradition. Azrakita in the traditions refers to the dimensions of that Kaaba. It's exactly what you find in Petra. Go look at the Kaaba that's in Mecca. It's the wrong dimensions. Go look at the Safa and Marwa, the two hills that you're supposed to run back and forth with, that the traditions talk about. Take a look at what they are in Mecca. They're just two rocks. Those are not mountains. They're about 19, 20 feet high. They're just facsimiles of nothing more than rocks which do exist in Petra. So if he's going to say that there was no Qibla at that far, then what is he going to do with his own traditions? Again, he's now confronting his own traditions, which I wish he would do. Continue to do that, Muslims. Confront your own traditions, because your traditions have it wrong. They've got the wrong man at the wrong place doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. They got the wrong book at the wrong place doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. They've got the wrong religion at the wrong place doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Thank God we don't have this with Jesus Christ. And thank God we don't have this problem. We've got the right person doing the right thing at the right place. We know where he was born. We knew where he died. We know where he was resurrected. Our Lord Jesus Christ can be proved over and over again because we've done our homework and we didn't just sit there and make stupid comments like this guy is making here on the internet. You can get away with that. Listen, you can fool everybody some of the time and some people all the time, but you can't fool everybody all the time. That's why we are introducing the historical evidence that's going to just destroy not only one book, we're going to destroy one man. And everything we're going to ask comes from the 7th century.
And that's exactly what we are going to do in this live stream, of course, to give at least a hint about the things that we are recording. And we're approaching the end of our first part of Let Us Reason. Thank you again for those of you who have joined us. Of course, I want to remind you, as always, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sira International. That's C as in Charlie, if you haven't done so. And we also want to encourage you to become a Patreon patron. Give through that on a monthly basis if you like, or if you like to use other platforms like PayPal or even Venmo. In the next part, we are going to give you an update on the status of the Patreon campaign, and also we will talk a little bit more about that. Until we meet again next time, I'm speaking now to the Let Us Reason audience. Have a blessed day, and thank you so much for joining us. For the rest of you here on the live stream, please wait for at least 1 minute, and then we will resume again with part 2. Yep. Very good. So, all right, we're back again, and we are going to start part 2 of our podcast, Let Us Reason, along, of course, with the live stream on our YouTube channel and Facebook also. The YouTube channel is Sira International, and I believe it's also going live on yours right now.
It's on Fender Films.
Yeah, Fender Films.
I was forced to put it on there. This is not my choosing.
Yeah.
They arm twisted me there into the studio room. I said,
we
you've got to put it on.
We are showing off our technical abilities here. That's why
you guys
we're
are
doing
very
this.
persuasive,
Yeah.
so I have no other choice. So there you can see it's on Fender Films. It'll also be on Fender UK. We're going to be introducing that. Probably we're going to uploading all our new material starting in January.
Very good. Very good. And again, thank you for joining us here on Let Us Reason. This is part 2 of the same topic that we've talked about last time. Has to do with the historicity of Muhammad. I know this may come as a surprise to many people that we are even daring to talk about a topic like this, because you hear about something over and over again, and you buy into it. You just believe in it. But now people are starting to feel uncomfortable because the evidence that we are unpacking, that Jay is unpacking for us, actually say a completely different story. And that's why we want to do series on topics like this. So Jay, last time you told everyone about the many reasons why there are some problems and tension when it comes to the traditional view about Muhammad versus what we are unpacking right now. What else would you like to add to that, like by way of some evidence that we're talking about?
Well, there are about 25 pieces of evidence that I introduced in the debate. If you want to go up on Fander Films, go up also on David Wood's site. He's got it up on his. I think over 100,000 people have watched the debate on his site, and I put it up on Fander Films. I don't know if I don't have near the number of subscribers that David Wood has. I think it's around it's upwards of 30,000. No, I'm sorry, it's about almost 20,000 on my site. So look at the debate and just unpack it there, because I went through all 20 of them real quickly, and then turned towards David and I said, listen, you can talk about principal embarrassment all you want, but the argument that he was not coming up with, and this is the argument I don't see Muslims coming up with, and that is the argument of silence. The difficulty for Muslims is they cannot deal with the argument of silence. They do not want it. In fact, they throw that out at me all the time. This is what Dr. Jamal Badawi threw at me back in 1995 when I debated him at Cambridge University. That's 25 years ago, and I debated him on this very material. And I said, I'm going to give you 10 challenges. That was 10 challenges back then. I want you to try to come up with one of them. He'd never heard him before. And he says, well, all you're talking about is silence. So who cares if we don't have anything written about this guy or this man or this place? We know it will come forward. It will come to the fore. I said, well, that's maybe so, but at that time I couldn't go beyond that. I couldn't really say any more. I couldn't push the envelope any longer than that because it was silent. Well, that's no longer the case in 2020. 25 years later, we are no longer arguing from silence. We're now arguing from evidence. We're looking for evidence and evidence after a piece of evidence after piece of evidence. And it's this evidence that's on the ground, like the rock inscriptions. All the 30,000 rock inscriptions, we've now looked at it. And take a look and see what Lindstedt has found. When you looked at all the rock inscriptions, were all from the north. Notice, these rock inscriptions are not from Mecca, Medina. They're up in what we're just talking about, Petra. They're up much further north. They're written in Nabatean Aramaic. They're not written in Sabbaic like they should have been written. And these inscriptions prior to 690 say nothing about Muhammad, say nothing about Islam, say nothing about Muslims, say nothing about Mecca, and say nothing about the Quran. Absolutely nothing. Yet they should be replete because they're from the same area that Islam should have been writing these from. This is exactly the place and the time that Islam was coming into fruition. Because of the fact that they're not there, Lindstedt said, well, let's see what happens after 690. When he looked at the Iraq inscriptions, suddenly you start to see from 690 up until 710, you see Muhammad's name starting to appear. Well, that's not a surprise. That's also on the coins, is it not? We see that also on the Caliphal protocols from Abdul Malik's on time, 692. We also see it also on the Dome of the Rock that's built in 691. So that's not surprising, that the name Muhammad. But is it a man named Muhammad, or is it just the praised one? Now, you know that in Arabic, Muhammad is the praised one. Am I correct?
Right. That's the way to translate it, basically.
That's the way to translate. When you look at the 4 references in the Quran, you will see that it can be translated as the praised one in every case. And when it's on the coins, it looks like Bismillah al-Mathura. I'm sorry, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It looks like that he's referring to himself. He's referring to himself on the Dome of the Rock. Why? Because he is the anointed one. He sees himself, Abdul Malik sees himself as the anointed one. Did not also Muawiyah say the same thing on the coins earlier in 661? Not Muhammad. He didn't use that word there. He used al-Malik. So, Bismillah al-Malik. And that's why it's fascinating. I'm not Bismillah. Yeah, it is Bismillah al-Malik.
In the name of Allah. And then the king.
The king. I'm the one. He's aggrandizing himself. Every king does that. So did Abdul Malik do that, especially when he got attacked by Justinian II and he introduced that new coin with his sword on. He really pushed it to where it's going. So that's typical of what kings do. Fascinating that even that may not have been the man Muhammad. It may have been nothing more than himself. So when, according to the rock inscriptions, when does this reference to the praised one become a man? That does not occur until about 720 to 730. Muhammad died in 632, according to the traditions, if he even ever lived.
Right.
And that's why it's fascinating when you go back in the inscriptions and you see that he gets introduced in 720 to 730. That's 100 years later. By that time, then, of course, they now are getting a narrative. They now have a man. And remember, the Arabs were looking for a man. They needed a man because the Jews and the Christian had their prophetic line.
Because that religion was so important in those days. I mean, even the Byzantine Empire associated Christianity to itself, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the Zoroastrian religion was associated with the Persians. So every empire wanted to prove itself that it has its own religion and its own man and book. And that's what happened.
And especially for the Arabs, because which Arabs are we talking about? These are Nabatean Arabs, and when you look at them, when they refer to themselves, they always refer to themselves either by Hagarines, which means Hagar, or Ishmaelites, which is Ishmael, the son of Hagar, or Maghreb, the people of Hagar. Again, in every case, they're tracing their lineage back to Abraham. They're
Right.
tracing their lineage back to Abraham through Ishmael. Their cousins are people like us, the Christians and Jews. We trace our lineage back, our biblical lineage back to Abraham through Isaac.
Right.
Yet we are the ones that have a prophetic line, because when you look at Genesis 17, it's very clear that you have Abraham asking this question about his son Ishmael. What about my son Ishmael? And verse 19 and 20, God
Right.
says, I will bless him. You'll have 12 sons. They'll be the ruler of 12 nations. But my covenant is with Isaac. My covenant is with Isaac. All the Maghreg, all the Hagarenes, and all the Ishmaelites knew that they do not have a prophetic line. Also, they don't have a scripture. They're the unscriptured people. Isn't that fascinating? Look at chapter 7, verse 157 of the Quran. That refers to it there. Look at 61, verse 7. That refers to it as well. And so that's why you can see that there's a real problem here for the Arabs in the 7th century. They don't have this prophetic line, and they don't have a scripture like their cousins, the Christians and Jews, do. And so you can see by the time Abdul Malik comes to power, this needs to be rectified. And that's why it's fascinating that it looks like at this time they're now introducing that character, that person, the prophetic line. But that doesn't really get formed until about 720, 730. So when do the manuscripts start to appear for the Quran? Not until after Abdul Malik, around Abdul al-Walid, because now you're even looking at the Sana'a manuscript, and you look and see there's a completely different layer underneath the palimpsest that you're looking at. Two
Right.
different layers, different references, and even different scripts between the two layers. So when you put it all together, whether or not you're looking at the documentary evidence, whether or not you're looking at the rock inscriptions, whether or not you're looking at the coins, whether or not you're looking also at the Qiblas, in every case we can see that there's an evolution of this need for an identity. The Arabs need an identity. So who do they choose first? Well, why don't you go back and look and see what was happening around 618 to 622? We haven't done that yet. That's coming up in an episode we're yet to do. Take a look and see who was the man that was there when Heraclius comes and destroys the Sassanians in 622. Isn't that interesting? Look at that date, 622. That's a pretty important date, isn't it?
It is. And I want you to hold your thought on that. And
You don't want me to continue on this because
Yeah.
I'm now giving stuff we haven't yet
because
gone
I
into.
want it to be a teaser, but I want to first, John San, thank you for the super chat, and this is really a good segue to the importance of what you're hearing, folks. This is one of the many reasons why I bring qualified people like Dr. J. Smith and others, David Wood, Anthony Rogers, Sam Shamoun, Robert Spencer, who was with us here, Joel Richardson, a number of people basically that we bring. The idea here for us is technically to have qualified people who can talk about subject matters that are very important to our ministry and their ministry, and in this case reaching Muslims for Christ, and in my case reaching Muslims and Saudis and Gulf Arabs for Christ. And of course, when you talk about Muhammad, you think of Mecca, Medina, the Arabian Peninsula, you think of the Quran being from there, you think of the Qibla facing Mecca, and this is why these topics are extremely powerful and groundbreaking. But we couldn't do it without your partnership, folks. And that leads me into our Patreon campaign. About a month ago, we launched a Patreon campaign, and our goal was to raise about 100 partners. I call them partners. I mean, it's not about the money, it's about partners to pray for us, to labor with us, to share our material, and if they want to give also as little as $1 or as much as they feel led to do. So it's not just about a specific amount, it's about many people joining arms with us. So far, I think we have raised close to 40 partners, and I think we're short for about 60 to 62, if my memory serves me right. And of course, I'm not the only one that I can benefit also from Patreon and patrons. Jay, why don't you speak into the importance of that, because it does assist us in raising some funding that can help us to produce these kind of programs, bring qualified people like you, and do the things that we like to do.
Yeah, both of us are what we call faith-supported people. You are faith-supported, I'm faith-supported. We don't have salaries like other people. We don't have a job where we become a part of an organization that pays us a salary. We have to raise our own support. I've been doing it for almost 40 years. You've been doing it less time than that. So therefore, we are dependent on people's largesse, on their generosity. and they're a tithe. And it really is the 10% tithe that people are asked. It can go to your church or it can come to us. Others people can actually use Patreon, because Patreon is a quick way to do that where you don't have to worry about, you can be anonymous and you can give money. It's right there on your site. You can see the Patreon button. Push the Patreon button and you can give as much money as you want. You can be something that's monthly or it can be one-offs accounts. I've got the same thing on my account. So do others who are doing this kind of job. And this is a difficulty that a lot of people that I have, because we don't like to go around asking for money, but unless we do have this kind of support, we can't continue to do this kind of work. This kind of work does take time. It takes effort. It takes also equipment. We have to do an awful lot of traveling. We have to also then teach people it. And this is one of the great things about YouTube. We can teach people through YouTube. But in order to do all of that, you don't have a team around you. I don't have a team around me. We are kind of solo individuals who do all our own research. We do all our own videoing. We also do all our own editing. I do my own uploading it. And once I put it up there, then I have to deal with all the repercussions from it. And I've got to, if there's a mistake that I made, I have to admit to it and go through it and make sure that I don't make that mistake a second time. That takes time. That takes energy. That takes an enormous amount of well, it just wipes you out after a while, and that's why you need to make sure that other people are with you. And one of the great things I think about Patreon is that they are people who are actually putting money where their mouth is. They want to support us. They want to continue to make sure that we come out with these kind of quality videos. These videos are unique, and we're the only ones that are doing this. I don't know of any other people who are doing this kind of level of videos. People like yourself, myself, Hatun Tosh is doing it. She puts out sometimes 2 or 3 videos a day. God bless her. She only sleeps 4 nights a week. So she has an awful lot of time. She doesn't have any husband that she has to worry about. And she tells me over again, I have a lot more time than you have because you have a family to support. Now, on top of that, you have people like David Wood, who is doing this as well. Sam Shamoun's doing this. Right. We have Colin, who is part of Islam Critique. We have Mel from Sneakers Corner. In fact, I noticed that Mel's on. He's putting some comments out there. We have Joe from Wikinoya. Yeah. Wikinoa, those are guys that are on my team. These are guys that are feeding me the material. These are the experts. They also need to have support. So go onto their YouTube site. Go on Joe's Wikinoa sites. Go onto Mel, Sneakers Corner, and give them the support, because they have to also eat every day like the rest of us.
Exactly.
They don't have teams around them that and are salaried like we are. And that's why it's important that you recognize this is going on. Tony Costa out of Canada, he needs it. We also, I'm trying to think of some others off the top of my head. We have Beth Peltola, who's also on, what's her... The One Truth Project. She is the one that's also needs an awful lot of support. An awful lot of people need to be supported. And I see there's Mel has just said hello, Jay and Al-Fadi. Hello there, Mel.
Hello,
Glad
Mel.
to see you on board.
Hopefully we can have Mel with us at some point here. We would love to have him.
Mel needs to come here. You need to listen to this. Guy is smart.
Absolutely.
Mel from Sneakers Corner. He used to come into the crowd there at Speakers Corner many years ago when I was there with Hatun, and he would always be at the bottom, and we would get to know him. So I've got to know him, and the guy's got a mind, but he's also able to communicate, and he's one of the few ones. It was one of the few ones that I know, Mel, is the few ones that actually can take what he's learning and put it into a soundbite and actually make sense of it. He doesn't get excited like me. He's much more even-keeled. He's very much more European and laid back. But what a mind he has got. And what I love of what he has done is he's actually put together this team of Sneakers Corner. He's got a guy from India named Bala. He's got a guy from the Middle East named Murad. He's got Joe on board now. Now he's getting together with Odin Lafontaine out of France. These guys, and there's another lady that from down in the southern hemisphere that I haven't met her yet, but I understand that she's come up with some brand new material, and we're going to be moving into some brand new material, and I'm just going to put this up as a precursor. We're going to be looking at Edom, and we're looking at that whole narrative. That's a whole new narrative that we have not yet introduced. Wait till you hear what people like Joe have found. And then I see Shamoun.
I see
Shamoun's
Sam
on there.
also here. Sam, thank you for joining, brother. Please announce if you're doing any live stream right now. Folks, Sam, if you don't know anything about his channel, I encourage you to go to his channel. It's Shamonian. I was discipled by Sam into apologetics, and I have to tell you, it's an amazing blessing for me and for those who are going through the knowledge that the Lord has blessed us through Sam. So I encourage you, of course, to do so. Brother, people don't know the challenges that we face in social media. I mean, YouTube, for instance, is on us in every corner. Facebook blocked me a couple of times, blocked Sam. blocked David. David ended up leaving Facebook altogether, and they gave him a strike recently for something that, was, truth, actually. He was sharing about persecution. So it's just amazing the kind of challenges we go through, and yet this is our bread and butter. That's where we deliver our material. That's what we do for a living. We're full-time missionaries.
Now, let me just tell you something that just happened in the last few weeks to Hatun. Hatun to Hashem. After this debate that I had with David Wood, Hatun was not convinced. She watched and stayed up all night watching it. She saw it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and so she texted me right after the debate, Jay, that was a great debate, but I'm still not convinced. Come on to my show on Tuesday. The debate was on Saturday. Come on to my show on Tuesday, DCCI, Defending Christ, Critiquing Islam. That's what it stands for. And convince me. So I did. I went on her show, and we did a live stream, and I had an hour where I went through a lot of this material with her. Boom, 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 boom. That went live stream, which means it went up onto her DCCI channel on YouTube immediately. Within 3 hours, I understand, YouTube deleted that talk that she and I had, and then gave her a strike. Fortunately, I had recorded it on my computer as well, so I had a copy of it, and I put it up on my site. You can go up and see it. And that was just done a few weeks ago. Now, stop and think. Hold on a minute. We're talking about a debate that happened on 3 or 4 days earlier, and we're unpacking it. There's nothing hateful about what we said. There was no Islamophobic material that was there. We're talking about historical accuracy. We're looking at basically whether or not who had the better arguments. And the material that I was putting forth, I said nothing about the embarrassing material that David was referring to. I was talking about the historical critique. How is it that is something that had to be struck off? Why does that have to be deleted? Now, just let me tell you what just happened just 2 days ago. Hatun says, Jay, that meltdown that Yasser Qadhi had last week on Thursday, where he really attacked David Wood, and he really attacked you, and he really attacked Dan Brubaker. And I said, yes, we all know about it. We've all been putting videos up. David put a video up. I put a video up within 2 hours because I watched it live. Also, Dan Brubaker has put up a video as a precursor to the one he's going to put up. She said, well, 2 of those videos I put up there, Yasser Qadhi complained about it, saying that these are copyrighted, and now they have been deleted and I've been given a strike, another strike. And, I'm sitting there wondering, why is it the Muslims never get these strikes? And all we're doing is referring to things that he said. How is it that he cannot let people refer to and also quote his very material? He said these are copyrighted videos. Well, once you put them up on YouTube, what do you want us to do? To try to say what we think you said? Or should we actually say what you said? Right. Isn't it better that we actually put the video of you saying these things so that we are held accountable, so that we are truthful? No, to me, it's just, I'm gobsmacked that YouTube is attacking Hatun for this, has attacked David for this. So far, I've not got a strike, and so far, I've not got deleted. But I no longer have monetary. I don't have any monetary, so I don't get any money off of YouTube at all. I'm zero. That's why you notice I don't have any advertisements anymore. So you can see they have shut down all my monetary material, and that to me I don't really care because I much prefer people supporting me, not YouTube supporting me. But this is something that is unique. I don't know of any other branch of inquiry where you get struck off, where you get hated, where you get death threats. Where look, it happened to Hatun just about 6 weeks ago when she was there at Speaker's Corner and she was surrounded by that crowd, and the police came to protect her. And as she was being put into the car, the Muslims were yelling, "Kill her! Kill her! Kill her!" What was her crime? She was at Speaker's Corner of all places. This is the bastion of freedom of speech. All she was doing was holding up a crown with holes in it that she had drilled in it to remind them about the holes in the narrative. That's the best symbol you can give for exactly what she's all about. And this has been hard for her because she's now had to leave her home. She's now homeless. She's having to go from home to home to home because she cannot find a place that will protect her, and the police won't even protect her anymore in Britain. Right. This is the kind of things we have to live with. These are the kind of things we have to live under. This is the kind of situation that has become reality for those of us who are confronting Islam head on. Yeah.
And Sam just mentioned, by the way, he's been just been blocked for 30 days on Facebook. This is not the first time they've done this to him, by the way. Usually this is a preparation to remove him. They do that, they speak on anything and everything. And he mentioned also shadow banning. I mean, that's one of the tactics they can use to try to steal away from your views, basically. I want to thank, of course, Kafir Linda for her super chat.
Kafir Linda, she's a good friend. I've known her for many. God bless you, Kafir. Thank you for doing that for our good old Fadi.
Thank you. Yes, and it looks like we just had 2 new patrons. Thank you so much. We appreciate any member, of course, joining us. And really, it's because of reasons like Jay mentioned. And, you know, folks, I have to even revert to hiring a legal person, an attorney, to go after a silly issue where someone just stole the identity of my channel, and yet nothing was done about it. So it shows how, you know, there are two double standards, basically. You know, one standard works one way and the other standard works the other way. All that to say is we're thankful that the Lord has given us these platforms. We want to use them in a wise manner, of course, to spread the good news. And we understand that there is going to be challenges that we will face. And obviously, I want to thank those of you who are joining us on Let Us Reason, the radio side of things. Hopefully, you can even consider becoming also members of our YouTube channel, Sira International, that you can go and explore the channel that Jay has, Fonder Films, and that's with a P as in Paul.
Islamic Clarity, just point him out. If anybody go to Islamic Clarity. Guys, listen, this guy's new on the block. He is amazing what he's putting up there. He's getting some brand new material, and he's actually going back and he's unpacking what's happening on the internet. He's one of the best that's out there that's actually doing what I think more people need to do, and he's going and he's showing who the major players are, and he's giving the background, he's showing their agenda. Great stuff, Islamic Clarity. God bless you for being and doing that for us.
Amen. And someone here says, Aaron Larson is saying that Hatun needs to get in touch with our friend at Islam Critique to go ahead and find ways to fight these strikes. And I agree. I mean, you have to really stand your grounds. But at the same time, it's still a challenge. It's still a disruption, regardless of how you look at it, obviously. With that in mind, again, like I said, go to our brother here, Fonder Films. That's the name of his YouTube channel. Shamonian, that's Sam Shamon's YouTube channel. Act 17 Apologetics, that's David Wood's channel. I mean, there's so many channels out there that we want to recommend. Islam Critique is another one. Consider, of course, going to these channels, subscribing to these channels. And if the Lord put in your heart to, basically give towards the efforts that they do, like I said, the great thing about Patreon is like you can give as little as $1. That's it, $1, and you forget about it, basically. But if you prefer other ways to give, I speak for myself. I have PayPal that you can use, of course, which the information you'll find it in a description box below the video. And also, I've added Venmo, and the handle for that is at al-fadi, and we will add that also to our description box. Brother, thank you so much for the time that you have spent with us. Those of you who are with us in a live stream, please do not leave yet. We will conclude the podcast at the moment, and then we will come back to you as well to interact with you and take a look at some of your questions. Thank you again to those of you who are joining us and Let Us Reason. May the Lord bless you richly. All right, well, we're back now into the live stream, and I saw, I think, another super chat. Thank you so much. I can't remember the name now. Al-Masihi, yeah, thank you so much. He's one of our partners also, Patreon partner recently, became one. I think I am seeing Sister of Christ, Daughter of Christ. I said Sister of Christ. Daughter of Christ. I'm not so sure really if this is the same Daughter of Christ that I had on my show. If it is, she's saying that she does have information about the Edomite or Edom,
Edomites. You need to go to Joe. I can't. Yeah. I'm not able to say something because I haven't really gone through all the material with Joe yet. Joe is now throwing this stuff on me. This guy has been working for years on it. I'm just now getting it for the first time. Joe, you're on there. I can see you. Joe Wicked Noah. Please go to his site. Also, Mel has brought Joe on board. Mel is working on this. Mel is Mel Sneakers Corner.
And Joe.
Joe Wicked Noah.
Wicked Noah? Okay.
Wikinoah, just like his name is. If you can see if you could go up to one of the comments there, you can just show it there. Joe, are you still there? Hello, just write something so we can see your comment. Then we can see your name and continue. There it is, joewikinoah.org. See it there? That's Joe. And Joe, this guy must have an eidetic memory. I don't know any way to describe it. I don't think he forgets anything that he has read. Amazing mind.
Great.
Same with Mel. Mel is the one that actually is the communicator for that group. And he's the one that's kind of the heading up the whole Sneakers Corner group, which includes Joe, which includes Murad, and which includes Bala.
That's great. Let's see if we have.
Oh, and also Faye. He wants to give a shout out for Faye. Faye is the woman who's coming up with brand new material. That stuff, wait, you haven't heard yet on Fander Film. We're all bringing this to Fander Film. It is yet to be put out through the wide sphere. But it's going to go out probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep. So let's start with this question. There's a question here that I just saw, and it disappeared. I'm sorry about that. It was right in front of me. Guys, just take us to any question, and let's see if we can interact with any of it. I'm not seeing.
Well, let's look at
so
that thing.
far.
The penalty of which is death for Milan 2. Asking them to approach Islam critically is an existential danger. This is the difficulty that we're always find. I was just talking about this earlier with a friend of mine who came here with me, and I said, "Isn't it interesting? Someone like Yusuf Qaradawi, who is head of Al Jazeera television, he is the one that unpacks the Quran every night on Al Jazeera television. He made this famous comment that Islam would not exist without the apostasy law." The apostasy law is the only reason why Islam still exists today. Because if it was ever put up to scrutiny, if it was ever put up to question or being critical, there would be such a drove of Muslims leaving. As far as the apostasy law is there, that keeps Muslims in place. Because if you are to, especially if you criticize the book and the man, Muhammad or the Quran, that is a capital offense in Islam. If you leave Islam, that is also a capital offense. Now, you're an apostate. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, that's the Sharia law for sure, but it seemed like they're not enforcing it. However, if they want to throw the book at you, they can do it. The law is on their side.
That and Scripture is on their side.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It's Sharia law, and which based on Scripture and Hadith, technically speaking.
And that's why you need to take a look. When you are not believers seeking an imperishable good. When you look and see what it says in the Quran, when you look and see what it says in all 4 schools of law, every one of the 4 schools of law, the Hanbali, the Hanafi, Shafi, and the Maliki school, all stipulate that if you leave Islam, it is pain of death. The only difference between the 4 schools is when you're killed.
Yep.
Some say immediately, others say 3 days, one says 10 days. And the reason for that is so that you can repent. And that's why you have the C-295 law in Pakistan. I grew up in India right next door, and that law stipulates that anybody who denigrates the Prophet or anybody that denigrates the Quran must be put to death. Interestingly, that's the law that was almost brought into Britain in just about 13 years ago. And I thank God that we have not fallen into that trap. Do you know of any law that comes close to that in Christianity? Do we have anything that would even suggest that people cannot leave or they can accept? Or in Christianity, we have just the opposite, don't we? Everybody has a choice to either leave or accept. Much as you can see, Adam and Eve were given that choice. And the prodigal son, one of the most beautiful stories there in the gospel account of here you have a father allows his son to even reject him, leave and reject him, yet he never rejected his son. Just the opposite. And that's why, in some ways, for those of us who live in the West, we are a product of that Judeo-Christian environment. We're a product of that freedom to choose or to reject Jesus Christ. Islam does not have that freedom.
Alexander, thank you so much for Super Chat. There is a strange question. I don't know what it's meant by it, by Kenneth White. Jay, how can you speak for 1.8 billion Muslims? I'm not really so sure what that means.
Okay, Ken, I'm not speaking for them. As you can see, of course I don't speak for 1.8 billion. Yeah. I'm speaking actually helping them to understand that everything all of the 1.8 billion have not looked at is based on a fraud. It's all based on. So I'm not speaking for them at all. I'm saying, have you noticed that everything you've trusted in your book, everything you've trusted in your man, is no longer now viable historically?
Yeah. The topic of Muhammad, as you know, is just explosive usually, and sometimes it's even bridge burner. It can shatter a conversation. But there's a question by Air Church saying, in terms of apologetic strategies, should we tell Muslims Muhammad didn't exist or expose Muhammad from the Islamic sources? Which strategy is more effective, exposing him or stating that he never existed?
Okay, now this is a question that really came up in that debate with David and I. And if you look at the discussion that happened after the debate, this is the one that was bandied back and forth. It's a good question. Let's do it unpacking right now. Of course, you don't go up to someone and say Muhammad didn't exist. That'd be stupid. You're going to ruin the conversation. They're going to walk away and say, this guy's a Looney Tunes. That's not how you approach it. So no one would do that. At the same token, you don't go up to somebody and say, well, look what a pervert your prophet is. Look what he did with look what he did with this little girl named Aisha, who was 7 years old, married her, and then consummated when he was 9. You're going to ruin the conversation. So you wouldn't do that on the get-go. What you do is you need to ask, what is it that's probably the more devastating for apologetics and polemics. Now remember, this is really polemics we're talking about, not apologetics. Apologetics is defending our faith. Polemics is going on the offense against the other. One is defense, the other is offense, like a football team. Right. You have defense and offense, two completely different teams, American football that is, and two completely different skills. When you go on the offense against any faith, it doesn't just have to be Islam, any faith, you're going to have to know that faith very well. And in order to introduce that, you need to start with apologetics, and as they make claims for the faith, then you just back them up and say, hold on a minute, you made this claim that this man was the greatest of all people, that he was the seal of all prophets, and that he was such a great man. Have you looked and seen what he did with the Jews living in Medina? If you say he's such a great man, what did he do with the Banu Kainuka family, the Banu Nadir family, the Banu Qurayza family, especially the Banu Qurayza family in 627? Right. If he's the greatest of all men, is this a model for you to use today? If he is your model, are you going to use that model? Because he slit the throat of 800 men and took the women as concubines and the children as slaves. Right. Is that the model we should use today in the 21st century here in the West? I would not think so. I would rather go to Jesus Christ. Because when Jesus Christ was confronted, when Jesus Christ was accosted, how did he respond? Even when the disciples tried to defend him in the Garden of Gethsemane, he told Peter to put away his sword, for he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Isn't that a better model today? Isn't that a better paradigm today? Absolutely. In fact, I say about this all the time for Muslims. If you want to find the best paradigm for everyone, everywhere, at any time, it's Jesus Christ. Because he is the man of peace, not Muhammad. So this idea of using and confronting him historically is probably the next step. And here's one thing that we need to be careful of. Right now, there is an awful lot, as we've just been saying, an awful lot of censorship against people who confront Muhammad and the Quran. We're seeing it on YouTube, we're seeing it on Facebook, and a lot of this is because they think that we are hate preachers or we are Islamophobes. Those are the two words that are used against us all the time. If you start confronting Muhammad with an awful lot of embarrassing stories about his, even if they are from the tradition and you're quoting the traditions, it almost borders hate speech in their sight, in their mind. And this is what I've learned. Because listen, I did this. What David's doing, what Sam's doing, I did this all the time. From the latter, in the 1990s I did this. In the early 2000s I did this. It was only in 1995 that I saw another much better material, and that was the historical critique. And I saw that because I was sitting under Dr. Gerald Haunting, who taught it to me. The historical critique, however, is completely neutral. It is not hate speech. I remember when the last day when I left the Speaker's Corner in 2017, my last day that was there, an atheist came up to me as the last person that came up to me. He was in tears. He said, "Jay, why are you leaving?" I said, "What do you mean, why am I leaving? You're an atheist. What do you care about what I have to say?" He says, "Because you're the first Christian we met that is actually speaking our language." I said, "Help me? Excuse me? I'm speaking your language?" He says, "Yes. We've heard Christian after Christian come up and get on the ladder and come down here to Speaker's Corner who just talks about their testimony." And he says, "We don't care diddly squat about your testimonies because that's not our experience. But you're not doing that. You're actually answering the question we're asking. And we're only asking a question that only takes 3 words. Is it true?" That's right. The question we're asking. Is it true? And you're using language that we understand, because you're not just saying, is it true for me? You're saying, is it true for you? Is it true for anybody sitting in this room? And in order to answer that question, you're going back to the historical critique, and you're saying, did this man exist at that place, doing those things at that time in that place? You're doing that with Jesus Christ, but you're taking those same questions and you're applying them to Muhammad. Muhammad is a historical character. Did he exist in Mecca in the 7th century doing those things at that time? You're asking the exact same question that have been asked of Jesus, you're asking of Muhammad. But more than that, this kind of material I can use, he said. I can use. And I kind of looked at him and I said, please don't. Please don't. This is not for you to use. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you feel that this is something that we're finally speaking your language. But see, you just want to destroy these Muslims' faith. You just want to shut them down so they don't know anything. But what do you have to offer them? What do you have? What antidote? What alternative? What answer are you going to give them? What are you going to replace their faith in God with? Atheism? What are you going to replace with their faith in revelation? You don't have any revelation. What are you going to do with Jesus Christ? They love Jesus Christ. Muslims come up to me all the time and say, we love Jesus Christ. Why don't you love Muhammad? And my answer is exactly. That's the problem. You have nothing to give them. This is really our debate. This is really our discussion. We are, as Christians, are the only ones that really should be involved in this, because as Christians, we are the only ones that have an alternative. As Christians, we are the only one that have the answer, and the only one that has an antidote. And that's why I do not want to destroy these Muslims' faith in God. I just want to bring them home. I
Amen.
do not want to destroy their faith in Scripture. I just want to bring them home. I do not want to destroy their faith in Jesus Christ. I just want to take them from Islam and bring them back to Yeshua, the real Jesus.
Amen.
So this is really for us to do. This is for those of us who actually do have an answer for these Muslims. Because why in the world do we want to make them atheists or humanists? We've got enough of those already in our country.
That's right.
And they have nowhere to go. And these people, these gorgeous Muslims, men and women, I've absolutely loved them. And that's why I've loved them for 38 years, because they are the ones that I find are the most passionate. And when it comes to God, are the most passionate. When it comes to revelation, are the most passionate. When it comes to the blind, they are the ones that I go to because they have a passion that I'm jealous of. I just want to make sure that that passion is to the right God, to the right book, and to the right man. And that's why I want to bring them. Let me give you an anecdote, an example of what happened a number of years ago. I was at Speaker's Corner. I was up on a ladder, and there was a huge, tall guy named Muhammad who stood about maybe 6'7", 6'8". So when I was on the ladder, his head was right next to mine. He was that tall. And I was talking about Muhammad that day, and he got absolutely upset. And he grabbed me and threw me off the ladder. Now, my glasses went one way, I went the other way. I got up, brushed myself off, looked at my glasses, put it back on, and got up and started talking as if nothing had happened. About 2 or 3 minutes later, he then grabbed me and threw me the other direction. I went flying. This happened the third time. I got thrown off the ladder 3 times by this Muhammad. Finally, I went up to him and says, Muhammad, we've got to stop this. You've got to stop throwing me off the ladder. This is not hurling corner. This is Speaker's Corner. As we were speaking, an atheist comes up to us. And he looks at it and says, why are you two talking to each other? You have nothing in common. Immediately, Muhammad put his huge arm around mine, turned towards the atheist, says, this man believes in God, I believe in God, you don't. This man believes in heaven and hell, I believe in heaven and hell, you don't. This man believes in prophets, I believe in prophets, you don't. This is my brother. Who are you? And that's when the penny dropped. Here is the guy who had just thrown me off the ladder 3 times, calling me his brother and not the atheist. Can you see what we're talking about?
Right, right.
We have an affinity with Islam that no one else has.
That's right.
We understand them better than anybody else. We have a love for them better than anybody else. I absolutely love Muhammad, and I love all these men and women of God who are from Islam. The problem is they've got the wrong book, they've got the wrong man, they've got the wrong God, and I want to bring him home because I want to be with them forever, walking and talking in the cool of the day. And the only way I can do that is to confront them, not at all this tertiary stuff that's all about the problems of their man and all these things, these silly things he did. I want to go to the very foundations. I want to go to the root, and I want to confront that root because I have a better root. I have a better book. I've got a better man, and I've got a better God, and they need to know him because until they know what God has done for them, until they know what God did for them 2,000 years ago, they'll never know how to get back to that God again. And my God is a God they can walk and talk with. My God is a God they can have a relationship with. My God is a God who came and entered time and space. My God is a God who died for them. What did what did Allah ever do for them? That guy doesn't even have a name. He's nothing more than a title. And that's why I say we need to bring him home. We need to bring him home. So this whole endeavor that we're doing, this historical criticism that you and I have been working on, that Hatun's been working on, that Mel's been working on, that Joe's been working on, that now Murad and them are all working. These guys are striving away, and they all want the same thing we want. They want to bring people home to Jesus Christ, and they want to bring people home to the truth.
Amen. Brother, thank you so much for your heart. Everyone, you see why I have an amazing partnership with our dear brother here. And I agree with everything he says. My heart aches for my people. 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 billion, whatever the number might be, my heart aches for them. Sometimes people wonder, by the way, why do I do shows in English when I am an Arab? Because who's going to take care of the non-Arab speaking, basically, Muslims? There is a large number of them. I mean, many of you probably assume if you're a Muslim, you're an Arab or at least speak Arabic. That's not the case. At least 300 million Muslims, if you're lucky, they speak and understand Arabic and also possibly, if any, understand also the Quranic Arabic. But who's going to reach out to the rest of them? They are made in the image of God. We have a responsibility to reach out to them. And you can see why I am called to do this. I've invested my life into doing this. I left engineering, by the way. Be honest with you, I was getting paid more than $100,000 a year in my engineering job. But when the calling came, I realized God wants me to leave everything behind and focus on serving the lost, and in this case, my Muslim people. So I laugh sometimes when I read comments that people think we're doing it to be riches. If we are rich, I have to tell you, we have yet to see those riches. People tell me, oh, you're making this much money. I haven't seen the check yet. I don't know, maybe you have it. But nevertheless, we're not about money. We're about serving the Lord. We use it to produce things like this because we want to give you the highest quality possible to benefit from it. Not just yourself, but maybe in small groups and among your friends. But most importantly, we care for our Muslim friends. I get a lot of notes from Muslims thanking me, actually, that the Lord used the little things that I've been doing to bring them to Christ. And I'm sure, Jay, you get the same comments from them. Right, brother, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll do another live stream. Most likely, I don't want to make commitment, but most likely it will be at 12 noon New York times. But sometimes we're at the mercy of technology. So hopefully it will be around that time. You'll know about it when it happens. And we will update you on what we've been doing up until that time. Thank you so much. God bless. And until we see you again, take care. This is Al Fadi.